What's happening? I decided this evening that I would tell a series of stories because you never know when you're going to run out of content and you're not going to have anything to say. But an evening with a fine Cuban cigar and a drink and some homemade lighting, which I've made myself. I would love to show you, but I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to mess with the base. I mean, I can tell you that this light is a head torch with a setting. Ooh. So yeah, I made a little makeshift studio space here in the kitchen where I can smoke my cigar and talk to you guys, tell some stories. So I'm going to tell you this story about something that happened when I was a child that led to some serious repercussions for one of my friends, a young boy who lived on my block. And I always felt somewhat lucky that it wasn't me because it very almost could have been. So I grew up in a part of Cardiff called Tremorfa. For anybody that knows Tremorfa, Splot, in the 90s, it was an extremely low income neighborhood. Most of the people that lived there were on benefits. Um, the crime rate was extremely high. Car crime was one of the worst places in the entire of Britain, just in the small little neighborhood that I lived. It was a really, really bad place in those years. I think things have calmed down a little bit now. It's not quite the same Tremorfa that it used to be, but the motorbikes and the stolen cars and just the antisocial behavior in general was rife. I apologize for any outside noise. I'm smoking my cigar in the kitchen, so I've got to keep the door just ajar. And my house backs onto a pretty busy road. So, one of the things that we used to do for fun, we used to do a lot of things for fun, some of which were really stupid and dangerous. And I've seen those stupid, dangerous situations lead to murder, literally. In fact, I might tell you both these stories today. So we used to go and steal the dust caps off of cars and lorries to put on our push bikes. We were a community where, as a kid, your push bike was everything. It was who you were. If you had a good push bike, you were the man. Having metal dust caps was like, you know, one of the only sort of additions that you could put on a bike to sort of jazz it up a little bit. So we would go to supermarket car parks. That would be a good place to go. Supermarket car parks, have a little look around all the cars, and if you saw one with some metal dust caps, you'd unscrew them, pocket them, shoot off, and then we'd all meet up and compare and swap. And it was we were treating them like Pokemon cards. They were collectibles to us, and they had they had value. They were our currency. You could get one of your friends to buy you some chips in the Golden Fried Chip Shop on Tweedsmuir Road if you swapped them a couple of dusties. So one day, I must have been about. Hmm, it's crazy to think because my daughter is 6, and I was gonna say 7, but maybe I was 8 or 9. But I was young. I was young. I was adventurous as a kid. But let's say I was about 8 years old, just for argument's sake. I'm 8 years old, and I get a knock at the door. I'm sat in the living room in the house, and the door knocks, and I look through the window, and there's like 6 of my friends, all on their push bikes, and they're all the bikes are just dropped in the front garden, and they're all knocking the door. So I go to the door, and they're like, "Yo, let's go nicking Dusties." And I was like, "Yes." And they were like, "We'll go over the factories, nicking Dusties off the lorries." I was like, "Yes, this is the place to go," because all the lorries used to park in the steelworks, and they'd be lined up along the road, and you could just sneak along, boom, boom, boom. The drivers would be sleeping. Wicked, wicked time, wicked place to nick Dusties. So I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, I'll be out now. I'm gonna go get my bike. So I run round the side of the house. I grab my bike and I shout, "Mum, I'm going out with my friends." And I'm just hopping over my bike seat when I hear, "No, no, not today. We're going shopping." Oh, what? You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me, mum. Like, no, no, not today. We're going to factories. She doesn't know this. She thinks we're just gonna go around a few blocks, but we used to go far and wide. So my mum says, I'm sorry, but no, me and your dad, we gotta go shopping. Um, my stepdad, she said, me and your dad, we gotta go shopping and we're gonna be gone a while, so you're gonna have to come with us. We can't just leave you around the streets. So I'm disappointed, I'm gutted, but I can tell that there's no answering back on this one. The final decision is made, and I've looked at my friends and I'm like, I'm sorry, boys, but it's not for me today. And they're like, okay, we're going to call for. I won't say the boy's name just out of respect, but they said, we're going to call for somebody else because they needed that one extra person to be the lookout or to everybody has their little job, their little role. There was some kids that were the ones that wanted to do the stealing, and there was some kids that didn't want to. And I tended to be more of one of those ones. I didn't really want to do the stealing. I would quite happily be the lookout because ultimately it is stealing, even though we're talking about dust caps. It's theft, it's stealing. So I sit down in the living room. The boys shoot off, and I'm gutted. I go out shopping for the day. Next thing, um, we're home and the ice cream van's coming around and my mum says, "Okay, let's walk up to the ice cream van." She was getting some cigarettes. I'd probably getting some sweets, screwball ice cream or something. All the mums are just like, "Oh, like, oh, have you heard? Something's going on, and we don't know what's going on." So we find out that the boy that my friends had called for after I'd not been able to go, they'd gone to his house. He'd said yes. They'd all headed out. They get to the steelworks and they're stealing dust caps. When one of the drivers catches them and he jumps out of his lorry. He's like, "Oi!" And they leg it. So they're getting chased by this lorry driver, and they see a ladder, and they felt it was their only way to get away from this guy. So the five or six of them, however many there was, I think there was six. They all scale up this ladder, and they're on the roof of the steelworks in Tremorfa, which is a very, very big building. I mean, it's a steelworks. It's a factory, and they're on the roof, and the guys, coming up the ladder, they're running across the roof, and the boy that replaced me dropped some of his dust caps, and rather than keep running, he stopped and turned to pick them up, and he fell through the roof, and I believe it's probably hyperbole, but I believe that he fell 40 or 60 feet onto the floor inside the factory. And I mean, I dread to imagine what kind of a state he was in when he hit the floor. But the next day, he's on the front page of the local paper. He was in a coma, and he stayed in that coma, I believe, for a month or 2 months. Every day at school, we'd have prayers for him. People were collecting money, like the school was collecting money for his family. We really believed that boy was dead. We we lost him, and I really mean this was my friend. This was my bro. Like, we used to go to the play center after school together every day. We used to ride our bikes every day. And next thing, I'm seeing a picture of him with tubes coming out of him on the front page of the local paper after I was about to go on this same adventure and he took my place. I'm pleased to say that he's alive. He survived. He did survive, and he's still alive and kicking today and doing really, really well for himself. But he was never the same. He had brain damage, quite severe, and he had brain damage quite severe. He had to relearn how to walk. He had to relearn how to talk. He barely remembered my name for a long time. I didn't know how to communicate or how to hang out with him. He spent a lot of time, at home alone, rehabilitating. You don't realize, when you're a kid, there's something so trivial and silly as going on your bike with your mates to pinch some dust caps off lorries could, boom, end your life. Just like that, bam, done. Obviously, in this case, it didn't end his life, but it did change his life. He, I see him these days, he collects scrap metal. He's not allowed to drive a car. So he fixed up a push bike with a trailer on the back, and he'd ride around for hours and hours and hours collecting scrap metal. And apparently, because he just saved his money, he's turned out to do quite well for himself. He's got his own family now. He's got his own place. He's got his own business. He's thriving. And I'm really proud of him. I'm really pleased for him. But it could have been me. And who knows if I would have been strong enough to have survived that accident, or to have been able to rehabilitate myself anything like the way he did. If he ever does see this video, I just hope that he knows that I'm proud of him. I just wish him and his family all the very best. I'm going to sign out of this one. I think I'm going to tell one more story and enjoy my cigar, enjoy the rest of my weekend. So, yeah. Loves you. Ta-da!